There are a lot of equations that comes with emotional reasoning that a lot of us don't want to deal with because we're okay with either being the villain in someone's story or we love being victimized. We love to be the victim, okay? Because that gives us some type of platform for attention. Today on Adjusting, we are talking about another cognitive distortion, emotional reasoning. We're going to start by addressing the cognitive distortion, talking about what it is, how it shows up in the body, who's affected by it, and then we're going to shift to adjusting to this cognitive distortion, talking about why dealing with this and addressing it will create a beautiful masterpiece and allow you to walk in freedom and your purpose by applying a few tools that I drop in this episode. So please share this with someone who is either finding new space with friendships or relationships, creative, someone in the workplace, or someone who is deconstructing their faith or new to their healing journey. I hope you find something helpful in this episode. So sit back, relax, and let's start adjusting. And we're back with another episode of Adjusting Podcast with your host, Justin G. Nelson. Y'all, we have 2 more weeks left in this series. I'm excited. Not because I'm tired of talking about it, but because I am tired of being emotionally victimized every episode talking about something and realizing that I have this too. Like today I was reading and I was just like, do I lead with emotions? I'm an emotional person. I'm a Cancer, okay? But I be doing stuff in this I'm gonna talk about in this episode, and I don't like it. So I have to practice what I preach. Okay, I have to start making more adjustments. But y'all don't even know what I'm talking about. Today we're talking about emotional reasoning. Okay. It's the cousin of catastrophizing and magnification. Like magnifying, minimizing. We're talking about the magnifying side of it. So be patient today, okay? You're going to need some paper and some things. But first, thank you to TJ with Tea with TJ podcast for editing. He's patient with me and I appreciate it. Also, I am doing a cabaret, not a solo cabaret, okay? It's me and 3 other people, but we are performing at the Laurie Beekman Theater here in New York City. It's my first cabaret, and it is April 24th at 9:15 p.m. There is a live stream option, so if you want to buy a ticket, you can. I'll put the link below. Thank you. Other than that, today's episode is it's fun. It's fun, but I think this is one that we really have to sit with and be honest with ourselves about the topic of emotional reasoning. So to prepare, let's take a breath. All right. If you're driving, focus on the road. If you are home or at work or in an office or at school, somewhere where you can get a little silence to breathe and center yourselves, I invite you to do so. Now we're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and release for 8. So ground your feet flat on the ground. Relax your ankles. Relax your shins and your calf muscles. Relax your knees. Relax your thighs, relax your hips, and start to sway left and right. Relax your stomach, relax your chest, relax your arms. Roll your shoulders back, relax your neck, relax your chin and your face, relax your forehead. Close your eyes and breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and release for 8. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let it all out. Great. We're going to take one more deep breath in and out just to let anything else out that might be blocking you. Okay? So deep breath in and out. Yes. All right. So, today we're talking about emotional reasoning. It is a cognitive distortion where you treat your feelings as evidence. I preach feelings are valid. You are human, you need feelings. Feelings to me are like part of the recipe, but not the final result. Okay? You need a little bit of experience, a little bit of feelings, a little bit of processing, time for everything to work together, and then you get an experience, you get the outcome of it all. Okay, so we're talking about emotional reasoning. So the internal logic goes like this: I feel embarrassed, so I must have done something humiliating. I feel like a fraud, so I must be one. I feel unwanted, so I clearly am. The feelings become the fact. Okay, but they're not. The feelings are the data, they're the research. They're the things that make you come to the conclusion. Fascinating. This is something I need to adjust. This is something that people see that I don't want to be presented as. So I need to do work. Not what they see is the truth, because it's not, unless it's a positive praise. But unless it's something negative, it's like, knock my water over. That's not who I am, but this is who I want to be. Okay? And this is important to hold because emotional reasoning doesn't mean your feelings are wrong or that you shouldn't trust yourself. It means your feelings, like I said, are data, but they are not the only data. Okay? And when we let them become the whole story, we close ourselves off from that asking the question that actually sets us free. Is this feeling something that is showing me what's true or showing me what I'm afraid of? We never ask ourselves questions. We go based off the fear analysis of it all and say, well, I'm afraid of this, so I can't do it. I can't do hard things. But you can. You can. Emotional reasoning is different from intuition. And a lot of people confuse that. Okay? Emotional reasoning is loud. Okay? It's urgent, it's rooted in fear. Intuition is quiet. It's grounded. It's based on experience. All right? One of the skills we'll talk about later is learning to distinguish the difference, because you can't dismiss everything you feel, but you can't let every feeling write the verdict. Okay? So, like I said, they're a close cousin to magnification, where emotional reasoning and catastrophizing show up together. You feel anxious, so you assume something bad is about to happen. You feel dread, so you treat the dread as a prophecy. The emotion starts driving the narrative, and suddenly your nervous system is living in a threat that exists only in your head, okay, and not in the life you're living. So, how does it show up across our day to day lives, in friendships and relationships? You haven't heard back from someone, okay? And it's been a few days. And so you just like, well, maybe they're tired of me, or maybe they're ghosting me, and I feel rejected. So the instant feeling of rejection pops up. Your brain doesn't say they might be busy. They might they might be working 4 jobs and don't have a social battery, and they just need a second to decompress, and they don't want to give you, I'm talking about myself here, they don't want to give you 10% of them. They know you're worthy of more. So they say, let me just not respond right now, because either I'm going to come across annoyed, or I'm going to come across dismissive, or I'm responding just for the sake that don't I don't want you to feel a certain way. But the person who's sending the text message has already gone to, well, other people don't respond, so maybe I'm getting on their nerves, or they don't want to be. That is not the case. Okay, especially if this person has never done this before, grace is available. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And in group settings, you're at a dinner table, a team meeting, or a community gathering, emotional reasoning shows up as the quiet conviction that you don't belong, even when no one told you that. Who told you that? Who said you don't belong here? Just because you weren't greeted a certain way, or everyone that has on black and you have on green, just sit your ass down. You belong there, okay? Next week, you'll be on track, okay? Next gathering, next meeting, you'll be on the same accord. But walking into new spaces, you have to determine how people treat you in these spaces. Don't come in with a preconceived notion that you don't belong there. Make them adjust. You go into space and you like, oh, I'm gonna shake some shit up. Not in the name of vanity and ego and pride, but because you are deserving to be in that space. So you go in with your green and say, I think it's a little bland in here, it's a little dark. So I'm gonna come in here and shake the table and make some stuff rattle, all right? And we gonna freshen it up. That's how you should go in, but not with anxiety as like, "Ugh, I don't think I belong here. I'm just gonna leave. Everyone has name brand. It ain't sorry. Anyway, you start reading every neutral expression as disapproval, every side conversation as exclusion. You leave early and confirm what you already decided was true. What made you leave wasn't the room, it was the interpretation your feelings built around the room. But again, by the end of this episode, we're going to walk in the room with our own energy and shift the space in creative work. Now listen, my creatives. Okay? This is for you. This episode is for you. Okay, as a creative myself, I'm talking about myself. But you're in the middle of building something. My friend, frat brother Theo sent me this video, and Ebony sent it to me too. But it's about this man's like, post the work. Okay, be in the moment, share your craft. I am Ray. I'm jumping over the place, but Ray, she wrote the song "Where's My Husband," and she just released her debut album, I believe, called "This Music May Cause Hope" or "May Bring Joy" or something. I don't know, but this is not sponsored, so I'm gonna move this off the table. But she was so transparent in her process. Like she took us from beginning to end. She dropped the song "Where's My Husband" and started showing us like different versions of the song. Where I'm a music guy, so stay with me. And she would change the accompaniment. She would change how the horns sound. She would change the intro. She would give us different variations of the same song. And I was just like, you're giving us multiple ways to see the picture, right? And she released her debut album and she released it on vinyl. But she said what you hear like on your streaming platforms is not what you're going to hear on the vinyl, okay? But she didn't let it stop her from releasing the vinyl. Somebody said, "Oh, well, this can be like a limited edition drop." She said, "Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's limited edition." So the vinyl doesn't have the mastered mix. I don't know the studio terms, but it doesn't have the mastered mix, and it doesn't have all the additional layers. But it's the raw, very flat, plain version of the song, but she released it. That's the point. Like, she didn't allow emotional reasoning to justify her not releasing anything. She said, I ain't got no money, but I have a gift and I have talent and I'm passionate about this project and I know this music may contain hope. And she inspired me. Okay. I'm gonna start releasing stuff. My TikTok videos about book. Listen, I desire to have more video editing skills, more pop ups in the screen, more noise and sound bites and things. I'm not there yet, but I'm not giving up. I'm still posting. Okay. I might not have the luxury of posting every single day, but when I post, I know somebody gonna like it. And that's what I want you to think about, okay? So when you come on a hard day, emotional reasoning turns the creative struggle into a character assessment. That feeling of being stuck becomes, I'm not actually good at this. The feeling of comparison becomes, other people have what it takes and I don't. You do. You do, but because your environment, your surrounding, your community, your family, your peers aren't giving you the support or the emotional validation you need, you made your feelings, again, you made your feelings data, you made your feelings facts. In a way, your feelings are opinions. Okay? Well, we'll talk about that later. But You get to this notion that what I have to share is not worth sharing. So it stays locked away forever in a drawer, in your head, in your Dropbox, in your phone, in your notes app. Not because it wasn't ready, but because the feeling said it wasn't ready. Your emotional reasoning dictated that what you wanted to share was not ready. So you're sitting on the next big thing. You're sitting on the next Mona Lisa. Okay. You're sitting on that next project, the next building, that next anything that people want to see. And I just want you by the end of this year to message me and say, hey, because of your episode, I did this. And I'm going to support it. Okay. You can be a free sponsor and I will support it and promote it every episode. Just let me know. And for, again, my writers, my visual artists, my musicians, any creative who works, lives at the edge of their comfort zone, emotional reasoning can be career defining in the worst way. Ray was the perfect example. The vulnerability it takes to make something and put it into the world is enormous. Even me making this podcast, knowing that there are therapists who hate, I don't want to say hate, hate is strong. Knowing there are therapists who criticize people like me who are not licensed. Again, I'm not telling you nothing you can't read in a book. I'm telling you things that I have dealt with in therapy, going through it in therapy, and I'm just finding another way to share it. I was just sharing it on Facebook as a post, and people just like, well, you have a great personality, so you should make a podcast. I hate a podcast. Okay, my attention span is short. But now I can go for a walk, I can listen to a podcast, I can laugh, I can cry, and I can share things with you. Okay? And the emotional reasoning exploits that vulnerability by converting the discomfort of exposure into evidence of inadequacy. I feel nervous about this, so it probably isn't good. That is not a quality check. Okay, you're not doing quality control. That is a feeling masquerading as one. We're not even into the second part yet, but stay with me. If you're in a season of healing, okay, if you are shifting, and I was talking to my other friend yesterday about this. It's like, when did you know you wanted to shift from the old you to the new you? Like, what did it take? And for most people, it's a life altering thing. You lost someone, you were about to lose yourself to drugs, to gun violence, to whatever it is. But like, if you're in a season of healing, whether that's therapy, grief, recovery, or rebuilding a sense of self after something traumatic, emotional reasoning can quietly derail the process. You have become so wired to feel that you are unworthy of grace, favor, healing, forgiveness. You've done something in your past. And this is not me telling you, bring your life to Christ, but bring your life to yourself. Take some time to say, I am worthy of this. I fucked up in the past, okay? I did some things wrong, but I'm still here to make a change, okay? The doors of the church are open, but you sit with a memory in therapy and you get overwhelmed, and that overwhelm becomes, I am too broken to heal, because you never had a safe space to where you can cry and just like, I really messed up, and I never got to name the fact that I messed up. A lot of us don't name the issues we dealt with. We just make it become a personality, or make it become, yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, but that what it is caused you to be who you are, and now you got a fucked up attitude and don't know how to talk to people, or don't know how to receive any help or support or love when it comes in, because you're too guarded by emotional reasoning, and now you're telling yourself, well, I don't deserve it. Says who? Who told you that? Exactly. You have a hard conversation about your faith and you feel distant from God, and that distance become God isn't there. You feel the grief of what was lost, and your brain says, that is who I am now. That the feeling is real. The feeling is real. The conclusion you're drawing is not. Like I said earlier, or maybe I didn't say that. I've recorded this episode multiple times. But we had our Good Friday service, and the pastor talked about it is finished. It was the last word of the 7 words, and she made this analogy. Dr. Lakeisha Waldron at First Corinthian Baptist Church in Harlem, and she was making the analogy of "it is finished" and how in the Bible it talks about into his hands I into your hands I could release my spirit. No, I'm trying to think of the song we sang. Into your hands, I can my spirit. I cannot think of the word. But anyway, basically, she made the connection to the Greek word of into your hands, I deposit my feelings, and release as a release switch to deposit, and feel spirit switch to feelings, and how the story says it is finished, but it wasn't finished because on the third day Jesus got up again. So we equate that to you finish a course within your sophomore year of college, but the finish is your graduation. You finish a meal, but the you finish a meal for the day, but the outcome is you losing weight. Okay? So when it comes to your healing and it comes to emotional reasoning, you finish a situation, but the outcome is the joy you experience once you are able to say, I because I did this and I worked on this, I can now have this. There are a lot of equations that comes with emotional reasoning that a lot of us don't want to deal with because we're okay with either being the villain in someone's story or we love being victimized. We love to be the victim, okay? Because that gives us some type of platform for attention. You weren't created to be a victim or a villain. You're created to be a human. But because love, shame, guilt, doubt, fear, rejection has created these character tropes in your life, you are now settling for the who the hell wants to live a life settling? I don't, and I know you don't. So at some point, we have to feel that we have to get to the finish line of our life. And that can be driven by purpose. But anyway, I'm not preaching a sermon. I'm just sharing what I learned at church. In language and daily life and goal setting, emotional reasoning is why so many people can't make decisions. You're weighing two options, and one of them just feels wrong, but you can't articulate why, so you either stay stuck or make the choice based entirely on which feeling is loudest in the moment. Sometimes that works, often, especially when the feeling is rooted in fear or old wounds, it doesn't. The feeling isn't guiding you toward the best choice, it's guiding you toward the safest one, which is not always the same thing. Okay? With goals and emotional reasoning, it sounds like I don't feel motivated today, so this must not be the right path for me. Again, going back to the Bible verse, into your hands, I condemn my spirits. I thought I had it. Into your hands, is it release? Commence? No, I can't think of the word. And I'm gonna think of it later. But anyway, it goes back to that with motivation, or I feel overwhelmed by this goal, which means it's too big and I should scale back, or I feel like I'm not making progress, so I should probably just stop. Every single one of those statements treats a temporary feeling as reliable information about a long time goal. But here is the thing: motivation is not a prerequisite for progress, it is often the result of it. Okay? So finishing something, you get motivated to keep going. The process of doing something doesn't always motivate you to finish it. Unless sometimes money is involved and you're like, I waste all my damn money, I'm gonna finish this. No, the motivation is not the prerequisite for progress. It is the result of it. But emotional reasoning has you waiting on the feeling before you take the action. And the feeling doesn't always show up on demand. What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do about it? So how does this show up as someone who experienced trauma? So for people who have experienced trauma, emotional reasoning isn't a bad habit. It's a nervous system adaptation, okay? When you've lived through experiences where things felt threatening and were threatening, your body learned to trust the feeling over the evidence. That was survival intelligence. I ain't gonna even drag y'all about the amygdala this episode, okay? But just know that thing is working overdrive. And for people navigating anxiety, emotional reasoning is a core driver of the spiral. Anxiety generates feelings, dread, worry, the physical sensation, the emotional reasoning converts those to facts. I feel like something bad is going to happen, so something bad is going to happen. I feel unprepared, so I must be. Okay? The anxiety creates the feelings, and emotional reasoning validates them. And then the anxiety gets louder because it's been confirmed. It's a loop. It's an anxiety loop. Okay? It's an emotional reasoning loop. If that, then this. Then that, then this. Then that. And it just keeps going. It's exhausting to live inside of that. And if you are living inside of that, jump out the loop, fall, trip, stop the loop, find someone. It's just kind of like when you watch, it was Disney, what was it, Loki? Loki, he had to find a way to stop the loop from happening, or else he wouldn't be able to end it. And he found a way. I forgot how he did it. But it's streaming on Disney Plus. They're not sponsoring this, so I ain't gonna give y'all too much information. But where did this start? How did we get here with emotional reason? And you know me, I am building a theory based off childhood trauma. All right, so emotional reasoning almost always has deep roots. If you grew up in a home where your feelings were regularly invalidated, where you were told you were too sensitive, too dramatic, and overreacting, your nervous system likely went one or two directions. Either it learned to dismiss feelings entirely, okay, or it learned to grip them even tighter as the only truth it could trust. The second is the setup for emotional reasoning, okay? When the world around you couldn't be trusted to reflect your reality accurately, your feelings became the most reliable thing you had. Also, environments where caregivers were emotionally volatile also produced this pattern. So, when a parent's mood was the emotional weather of the whole household, and you knew once their door slammed, hell's gonna break loose. You learned young to read the room through feelings, to sense tension before it was named, to brace before anything was said. And children who experience chronic shame through harsh discipline, public embarrassment. Y'all think yelling at your kids in public and calling your kids a punk or a sissy or all these things is funny, he hell, and then your child grow up and whoop your ass, then what? They come back like, you embarrassed me, you did this, that, and the other. Heaven forbid they do something to themselves, but you were trying to be funny, trying to appeal to somebody else who don't give a damn, who talking about your child too. Now your child walking around with shame and stuff. Again, bullying and social exclusion during childhood, particularly in environments where adults didn't intervene or didn't believe in you, also train emotional reasoning. When your feeling of being unwanted was repeatedly confirmed, your brain stopped questioning it. I feel like I don't belong, got backed up by enough real experiences that it became a reflex. Now, even in environments where belonging is available, you still question. You're just like, oh, thank you. I don't know. Maybe. Who are gonna be there? Like we start to question everything. Now we can move on. We can move on to section 2. Why shifting this pattern actually matters. I touched on this. We purpose. We short ourselves of joy and happiness and the freedom. Freedom. Freedom has been a trending thing on social media. Like a lot of people want to feel free. And I know black people, we we put a lot of emotional reasoning shackles on everything we do, sometimes in the name of capitalism. We feel we can't have this because of this. And I'm just like, God damn. We weren't created by the Lord and Savior to operate in this place. Like, I'm gonna get churchy again. Like, I come that you might have life more abundantly. We have to live in abundance. We have to shift from emotional reasoning to emotional abundance. Okay? That might not even be a term, but it is today. on this episode. Great. So here's what I want you to understand about emotional reasoning. It is not just making you feel bad in the moment. It is making decisions for you. Every time you don't send the pitch because it feels too big or too presumptuous, and you're just like, it's too soon. Or every time you don't say what you actually need because it feels like too much. Every time you pull back from a connection because something feels off, you can't name why. Your feelings are steering your life. And the question worth sitting with is, are these feelings from current accurate information, or are they working from old data? Okay, we're making the adjustment. So the way things work in your old ways, your traumatic, your I'm responding from hurt and pain, that doesn't work in a new space. Okay, and like you going into a relationship, a lot of relationships suffer because of emotional reasoning, because you're bringing old baggage to a new destination. You need to upgrade your emotional reasoning. Okay, just because your partner fell asleep while y'all watch a movie don't mean they're bored. Baby, they probably got sleep apnea. Okay, they probably got a health condition. And but you didn't take time to know that because your last partner was cheating on you and was falling asleep because they were creeping out or they were trying to get ready for their sneaky leak. But you took that baggage to your next destination and now you questioning everything over there. Why they sneeze like that? They got sinus problems. Like, what do you mean? Why do they sneeze? but again, but again, you are human. We are human. Okay. Everyone isn't wired the same. I know I was guilty of it. Okay. I took old baggage to a new place and then I kicked it. I kicked the baggage out. I was like, burn. Because you're not gonna mess this up. We still broke up. But still, it's the principle of it all. Okay. You're relating to the version of them your nervous system has constructed based on who hurt you. Okay. The people in the front of you now, the ones who are actually trying, they don't deserve that. They deserve a chance. Not a choice, a chance. Shit. Sorry, I love this episode. Okay, professionally, emotional reasoning is one of the biggest hidden barriers to growth. It shows up as the refusal to advocate for yourself because asking feels like imposing. This is where it gets personal. So, I work as a freelance, and it is so hard for me at times to ask for more money. It is really hard. And I know these people got money because I see it coming in. But then they gaslight me and say, well, if we have one, we'll pay more. Okay, I'm going to do less. How about that? I'm going to do less. I'm going to do the bare minimum of what I'm being paid to do. I'm no longer going above and beyond. And then what? And then when you call them out on it, every time after that becomes, oh, make sure you send the invoice, make sure you do this. And then you question, are you being shady? Because I know you got the money. I'm going to send the invoice. It's already sent. Okay, it's drafted. I've drafted it. It's going to be in the inbox as soon as I press. Yeah, great. But it shows up as staying in a role that's too small because stepping into a bigger one feels like pretending. It shows up as the inability to receive feedback without internalizing it as the verdict of your character. The feelings are real. The feelings are real. But the conclusions they're driving are often protecting an old version of you. One who needed their protection while keeping the current you from moving forward. Shifting emotional reasoning matters because you deserve to make choices from a grounded place, not a reactive one. We have to learn to sit with things, process it fully, okay? Not just the emotional side, but the full picture. Take it all in and not just be quick to react, okay? Not from what fear is generating in the moment, but from a clear eyed read of what's actually happening. That is not about becoming emotionless, it's about becoming emotionally literate. There is a difference between I feel afraid and that fear is telling me something I need to pay attention to, and I feel afraid, so this must be something I cannot do. Learning to tell those apart is some of the most important work you can do. Okay? So, I wanted to touch on shame and guilt because I want to eventually, and this hasn't been trademarked, so I pray no one takes it. But I really want to start a safe space in like my 40s or on down the line called Sex, Shame, and Spirituality. Because I find that a lot of people experience sexual shame at an early age. And I've talked to a sex therapist about this, and hopefully they can come on my podcast and we can talk about it. But in that platform, I will talk about shame and guilt and things that have happened. Shame and emotional reasoning are almost always in a relationship with each other, and it is worth naming clearly how it works. Guilt says I did something bad, shame says I am bad. Okay? And emotional reasoning is the mechanism that keeps shame in place because it converts the feeling of being bad into the belief that you are bad and then treats that belief as self-knowledge. People are walking around feeling like this. So imagine how they would feel if they had a space to actually talk about it, name the shame, remove the guilt, and find freedom. There'd be a lot more happy people around here. Okay, people won't be having to self-medicate and do all these other things because they had shame and they haven't had a chance to express it or a safe space to do it. Like that's the kind of work I want to do. You see the picture? Good. Okay. So when shame is chronic, it stops feeling like a distortion and starts feeling like a ground truth. You don't notice it as a feeling anymore. It just feels like the answer to the question, who am I? And becomes emotional reasoning. And because emotional reasoning has trained you to trust feelings as fact, the shame doesn't get examined. It just sits there, informing every room you walk into, every opportunity you approach, every relationship you try to build, whispering you don't deserve to be there. Okay? So let us jump to the third part: addressing, adjusting, applying. So we're going to apply. So what can you actually shift? So number one, I want you to shift from feeling to fact. Okay? That's number one. The moment you notice an emotion has turned into a conclusion, try naming both out loud, either in writing or just say it out loud separately. I feel like nothing in that room respected me, or nobody in that room respected me. That's the feeling, okay? Nobody in that room respected me is the claim. They are not the same sentence, even though from the inside they feel identical. The act of separating them creates a tiny gap. And that gap is where your agency lives, okay? You don't have to solve the feeling or argue yourself out of it. Just name it as a feeling, not a fact, and let that be enough for now. The second thing, ask, okay? The evidence question. Once you've named the leap, get curious about what's actually there. Not, am I being irrational? Okay, that question is unkind and usually unproductive. But what would I need to see or hear to know whether this feeling is accurate? And is there any evidence on the other side of this feeling that I haven't looked for yet? Okay, so we have to ask more questions. We have to be a little more vulnerable and a little more curious about things in order to find a way to feeling free and freedom, and not just the one question of, am I being irrational? Am I overthinking? Actually, what about this situation is making me overthink? Which leads me to the next thing. We have to keep reframing stuff, okay? Emotional reasoning tends to be all or nothing. If the feeling is present, the conclusion must be true. But we do a both and reframe that holds space for the feeling and a fuller picture at the same time. I don't feel like I belong there, and I have done the work to be in this room. Okay? I've done the work. I don't feel like I belong there. I don't even know everyone in the room. Somebody else might be feeling the same way. But because I automatically allowed emotional reasoning to kick me out the door, I just walked in, but I worked my ass out to be in this room. Y'all gonna see me in this room, okay? I feel afraid of this, and fear doesn't mean it's wrong for me. I feel like this isn't good enough, and I'm still gonna finish it. Both things can be true. The feeling gets to be there, it just doesn't get to be the only thing that's there. Which takes me to the fourth thing, consider the source. Okay, check the source of the feeling. Sometimes emotional reasoning is being driven by a past experience that just got triggered, not by what's actually happening right now. So when the feeling hits and it hits hard and fast, it's worth asking, is that feeling about this moment, or is this feeling about a moment from before that this one reminded me of? The question doesn't always have an easy answer, but asking it shows an automatic reframe, or it's a leap from I feel this to therefore this is true. And sometimes a pause is everything you need. Okay? Like, pausing in the middle of a heated conversation or a crash out will save you a lot. Save you a lot of energy. It'll save you a reputation. It'll save you some time. Okay? Pause. And the fifth thing, live. Get out of your head and live. Emotional reasoning thrives in isolation. When the feeling is the only input you're working with, it has nothing to compete with. When the feeling is the only thing you're working with, it has nothing to compete with. Journaling, talking to somebody, okay? Or just even saying it out loud to yourself, I feel like I'm a complete mess and no one wants to work with me, creates the externalization externalizing distance that makes the distortion visible. You don't have to find the perfect counter argument. Just getting the thought outside of your head often reveals how extreme it actually is. So, the next time a friendship feels uncertain, when the silence feels loud, when you're reading into the tone of a text, try noticing whether you move from I feel unsure about this or about where we stand to we are not okay. Those are two different places. Okay. The first is something you can address, reach out about, follow up, have coffee over. The second is simply a conclusion that will shape how you show up in the friendship. In creative work, okay, before you abandon that next masterpiece or something you've been thinking of because it doesn't feel right, get honest about the feeling and about what that feeling is telling you. Is it telling you the work needs more time, that you're tired, that you're scared, or is it telling you something is genuinely not working? Those are all valid questions, by the way. They're valid, but they require different responses. I feel like this is terrible. It's not a quality assessment. Okay. Sit with the work a little longer before you let the feeling make the call. Creatives who learn to do this produce work the world needs. The ones who let emotional reasoning run the studio often doesn't. You can't give emotional reasoning a seat at your table. Okay, it can't be on the board of directors. You have to leave it outside the door. In healing and faith spaces, if you are in a season of deconstruction and rebuilding your relationship with spirituality or working through some trauma, emotional reasoning can make the process feel more conclusive than it is. Feeling distance from God is not the same as God being absent. Feeling hopeless in a season, in a session, doesn't mean healing isn't happening. Feeling uncertain about your beliefs does not mean you never had real faith. Feelings in healing spaces are important, but they're not the final word. Okay? In daily life and goal setting, when the motivation doesn't show up and the feeling is, I just don't have what it takes to do this, try separating the feeling from the action. You don't need to feel capable to take one small step. You do not need to feel confident to send the message. You don't need to feel ready to begin. Emotional reasoning tells you to wait for the feeling before the move. The most meaningful growth requires you to move before the feeling arrives and then watch the feeling change as the result comes. When it's hard, there will be moments, there will be moments when the feeling is so big and so loud that there is no tool that can touch it. In that moment, take a nap. I'm joking, but that's real and that is okay. You're human. The work isn't to never be overtaken by emotional reasoning. It's to shorten the time between what is happening and when recognizing it. When you're in the middle of a triggered moment, When the body is already activated and the feeling has already become the fact, the most useful thing is usually not a cognitive tool. It's slapping somebody. I'm kidding. It is regulated nervous system. That means slowing your breath, getting physical, a walk, grounding your feet in nature, putting your feet in some water, something, before you try to think your way through it. All right? And if this pattern is deeply rooted, if it shows up constantly, if it's connected to trauma, get some support. Again, those resources on my website, that's what it's there for. So, how do we end this episode? Here's what I want you to hold as you move through the week. Your feelings are not your enemy. Okay? They're the data. They're the small pieces to the puzzle. They're the ingredients to the final recipe. They are not something you need to suppress, to talk yourself out of, to be ashamed of. They are information. Incredibly important, deeply human information, and they deserve to be taken seriously. But they are not the whole story. They're a paragraph. Okay? They're a part of the plot, but not the ending. So remember that. You have not failed just because failure is imminent. And the room you just walked into, you earned your seat there. Okay? Shake that shit up. Your feelings didn't get you in the door. You did. One question, one breath, that is enough to start changing the way you relate to your own inner world. I would love to know what comes up for you, how any of those 5 things resonate with you. And this is the work we're doing, and I hope you're doing it. So until next time, keep adjusting. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I hope you take something away to help you make the adjustments you need. Before you go, please take a quick second to share this with someone you care about. And if you can, please leave a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. For more information about adjusting or to inquire about being a guest, head over to adjustingpod.com. Until next time.